What's up, you guys? Josh out here in Singapore, and as always, thank you so much for joining me on the Night Owl podcast. I swear to God, I've been up all night. It's almost 5 o'clock in the morning, and I am still a little wired. So I'm gonna get this idea out while it has steam, while it has some momentum. I've been thinking a lot about the fact that we are, all of us, involved in some way with someone who we allow to constantly injure us. It's almost like death by a thousand cuts, right? But it's the fact that we're allowing it, because if we were actually bothered in the grand scheme of things, we would have stopped it a long time ago. But there is this phenomenon where it's small. It might be daily, but it's small and it's not a bad thing. And at first we were like, oh, it's a mood, maybe it's a phase, maybe they're going through something and they know not what they do. But eventually, over time, as with anything that is consistently created or consistently done, there is a lasting effect of sorts. There is a mark that is made, or a scar that is formed over time, because this insult, this injury, whatever the case may be, this thousand cuts happens to occur in the same place over and over and over again. And while it might be small, might be paper cut like, the fact that it continuously happens eventually builds momentum. It builds this weight to it. It's almost like if I were to ask you to carry a cup of water, of course, that water cup is not that heavy, but if you were to carry it over time with your arm outstretched, the cup does not change in size or volume. It does not change in weight, but your ability to carry it becomes a burden all of a sudden. Your arm muscles fatigue. You are not able to carry your arm outstretched the way that you used to before, because it's over time. And something about time that kind of compounds the pain of a thousand cuts. You see, this phenomenon is so painful that there's actually a term for it. It's called ling qi in Chinese. And translated loosely, it means a slow process, the lingering death, or the slow slicing, also known as death by a thousand cuts, which was a form of torture and execution used in China from 900 onwards. So if there is a term for this already, and this is a form of torture, it is in your best interest with the first cut for you to let somebody know that cut, it hurt. It wasn't a passing remark. It wasn't a snide comment. It wasn't in jest. You may have laughed it off. You may have said, oh my God, it's just a joke. Can't you take a joke? But if it cut you deeply, if it hurt you in some way, it is your responsibility to tell the person that it hurt. After that, if they continue, it's entirely their fault, because they are aware of the fact that it causes pain and continue to do so. But in that regard, there is that fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me concept as well. Because once you've told that person and they continue to do so, you're welcome to try 2 and 3 more times to tell them again. But if you know that the message has been well received and they continue to ignore it, then it's up to you to distance yourself from that person. Death by a thousand cuts can look like going to family gatherings once every blue moon, and every time you see the same relatives and they come up and they ask you the same questions, and it leaves you wondering why it is that this subject, the subject of why haven't you gotten married yet, what job do you have right now, how much money do you make, when are you going to get pregnant, when do you move into your own house, when do you get your degree, like all of those questions, even the ones that are very obvious, stating the obvious. Oh my God, you lost weight. Oh my God, you gained weight. Oh my God, what happened to your face? Why is your face breaking out? Aren't you old? And so shouldn't you have grown out of your acne phase? Like all of those things matter to us. A lot of times they are obvious statements that press upon wounds that we already know exist. We may not be happy with the way our face breaks out, but for someone else to point it out to us is almost like insult to injury. More than that, though, to live in the same vicinity of someone who constantly puts you down, reprimands you, chastises you, criticizes you, judges you, shames you for your actions, and does not offer recourse or an alternate option, it's very, very difficult for you to come out of that. It's very, very difficult for you to maintain your sense of self and your confidence in the face of a thousand cuts. And it is this phenomenon that I want to address today, because I've been through it too. I've lived through it in various forms. I've lived through it with my mother as a teenager. I've lived through it with my dance teachers at some point. I've lived through it with obnoxious boyfriends and entitled ex-husbands. I've lived through it with friends who really understood me, and then suddenly when I said no to them, suddenly changed their tune and became haters, which now I realize they were haters from the beginning. I've lived through so many of these death by a thousand cut scenarios that I realize now that the best way to avoid them is to nip it in the bud, to tell them right away when something hurts your feelings. And sometimes I feel like I can, and sometimes I feel like I can't. Still, I fall into that space where I am afraid to hurt someone's feelings. Perhaps they've told me that they have a mental illness. Perhaps they've told me that they are sensitive to certain kinds of feedback. And so, because I am in the mental health space and because I do, with high regard, consider how fragile some people are, I try not to hurt their feelings. I try not to push back or to correct them too harshly. But usually I will distance myself and remove my energy from their presence because it hurts too much. But this is why I'm saying a small thing once may not hurt you, but over time, it could be disastrous. It could be something that you take years to put back together or to replace somehow. Maybe in the moment you have someone that you can rely on and speak to, but the way they are around you isn't actually helpful. It does impede your own progress, and it does make you question what self-confidence you've garnered up till this point. But if you don't tell them, you are doing yourself a disservice. If you don't tell them, you are not giving the relationship the chance that it could or might need in order for it to survive, to really test the mettle of the friendship that is in that relationship. And if you don't give yourself that chance, you're almost certainly dooming yourself to death by 1,000 cuts. It doesn't have to be a big cut. It doesn't have to be, a big knockdown, drag out fight. It could be insults on a daily basis. It could be judgment on a daily basis. It could be the fact that they don't trust anything that you do and are paranoid because of past traumas that they themselves have survived. And so they project upon you the pain that they have so far endured. And so it's up to you to protect yourself. It's up to you to teach people exactly how much you respect yourself. You have to draw the line at some point. You have to cast a protective circle. You have to find a way to communicate the fact that you are in pain, that you are struggling, that you yourself are human. And while you might be there to help other people, that it is you as well that needs help from time to time. So rather than endure constant paranoia, constant jealousy, to constantly have to justify where you are, who you are, what you've been doing, to constantly check in with somebody to let them know where you are, what to expect, is quite exhausting. And if that is the kind of energy you find yourself in, I would highly recommend you having a moment to yourself to consider how you would go about setting that boundary, stopping the behavior. Because while you may have allowed it for a time, there is never a bad time for this. You still have the right to draw a boundary, to stop people in their tracks, to correct a behavior that is hurting you. That includes children. Children don't know what they're doing until you teach them what's appropriate and what's not. And maybe when they were a child, it was okay for them to, to speak out of turn because at the time it was funny and the people around you would have laughed and said, oh my God, that's so cute. But it reinforces the bad behavior, and at some point you're going to have to correct it. So while you may have allowed it for a time, and while they may have gotten used to being allowed that certain behavior, it is well within your right to correct people, to stop them in their tracks, to tell them, hey, you are hurting me. And for them then to have the responsibility to either heed the constructive criticism that you have provided or continue on their route in hurting you, showing you that they don't actually care as much as you thought they did. And while that might be a rude awakening to you, it is the information that you need in order for you to progress in your own life. So take it from me, where I have done this over and over numerous times in my life and suffered every time. It is well worth it to stop the behavior in its tracks. It is well worth it to tell the person, hey, you're hurting me. And if need be, explain to them what it is about the remark or the behavior that hurts you so that they can actually make an informed decision to either support the relationship and protect it going forward, or to continue in their own route because they are more comfortable with their behavior than they are to keep you around. It's more important for them to be comfortable than it is for you to be safe and respected. And then you have your answer. So I know a lot of us would rather not ask the question because we don't want the answer, because it could be one of two things. But if you really value your peace of mind, if you really do understand what I'm talking about when I say death by 1,000 cuts, and it could be paper cuts, but the pain would still be accumulated over time, and the damage that it would do in order for you to disentangle and then to rebuild yourself would take way more time than it would if you were to notice the red flag ahead of time, correct it as much as you can, and then if need be, walk away way back in the beginning of the relationship itself. So please, save yourself the drama, save yourself the compounded pain, and do what you must to protect yourself, because in so doing, you're teaching people how to protect you as well. I love you guys, and I hope this helped. Bye.